I'll start with some basic facts about SAVI. It's a £29 million DFID-funded programme that works in 10 states in Nigeria. It started in 2008 and it's due to come to an end, this phase is due to come to an end in 2016. And the design team to design phase 2 is coming to Nigeria in a couple of weeks' time. We are officially classified as a demand-side governance programme, but we're part of a suite of DFID-funded programmes that all set up at the same time in these states, which are designed to impact collectively. So the problem that these programmes are designed to address is helping state governments to make better use of their own resources, to be more responsive to citizens and deliver better services to citizens. The starting point on a demand-side governance point of view is the various different demand-side players. We work with citizens, civil society groups, media, individuals from the media, groups from the media, state houses of assembly, local politicians. That those groups traditionally don't get on with each other at all and regard each other with quite some suspicion. And civil society organisations that tend to occupy the sort of advocacy space tend to have a comparatively antagonistic relationship with government, and government tends not to trust them. So that's the kind of starting point for our work. How this kind of work has been supported in the past, what others have done. The typical way of supporting demand-side governance is through grant funds to CSOs, issuing calls for proposals and having CSOs doing advocacy work. Now that approach has a number of inherent challenges, which is that grants tend to come with strings attached. So the grant recipients often have preset activities, preset targets they're trying to address, and they report against those. So as we were talking about yesterday, that very much takes away their room for manoeuvre and means they don't have the flexibility and adaptability to adapt to the differing opportunities and momentum. Secondly, the issuing of grants to CSOs tends to set up a competitive relationship between CSOs because they're competing for funding, so they're therefore also competing for status, and so the kind of collaborative relationships you need are undermined. There's been a huge proliferation of advocacy CSOs in Nigeria, as there has been in many of the countries we work in response to the availability of funding. And those organisations, there's a lot of briefcase CSOs who are kind of urban-based, very weak links to citizens. There's some fantastically good CSOs as well, but a lot of briefcase CSOs. And generally, the credibility of CSOs in the eyes of citizens is fairly low. They're seen as kind of chasing donor money, fulfilling donor agendas, subcontracting for donors. And in the eyes of government, CSOs are often seen as antagonistic and, again, chasing donor money, subcontracting donor agendas. And if you get money to the CBOs, the kind of organisations that really do have their feet on the ground, then the problem that Duncan talked about yesterday, that the money can easily kill off the very organisations it's trying to support. So that's the kind of starting point problem. So what do? We don't give grants and we don't issue a call for proposals. The approach that we used was devised by our core members of our technical team who've been working together in Nigeria since the late 1990s on DFID-funded programs. And we have a sort of multi-stakeholder partnership approach which was evolved in a wetlands management program called JEWEL, a sort of sustainable livelihoods program. So it kind of predates a lot of the thinking on demand-side governance. So it draws on that. And it has I've honed it down to sort of 6 core features. We work through state teams. So in each of the states we work, we recruit state teams who are made up of staff who are from that state and so have a kind of commitment to change in that state. Increasingly, we've found that our most effective teams are ones where the members of those state teams come from the range of stakeholders we're trying to bring together. So some of the staff might have previously worked with government or with donor programs or with media organisations or with CSOs. So they're kind of a neutral broker. And we invest heavily in training and supporting our state teams. We have meetings bringing together our state teams every quarter, and we have throughout the programme where core aspects of how SAVI works are honed and debated and argued over. So the whole of SAVI is like a kind of wind tunnel, honing what SAVI does. When state teams first set up in a state, they spend a lot of time finding out about the lay of the land. So we train our state teams to do their own political economy analysis. They're not political scientists. We have political scientists mentoring them. And they ask about power, the history of power, who has power, where the kind of... And they try, and through these processes, they try to find issues that have traction, both with the state government and with citizens. And they then dig into those issues, think who's got power in relation to those issues? Where's the momentum for change? What's been tried? Who are the credible players? And increasingly, we then put those debates out into the public. So we use the media to try and get beyond the sort of usual suspects who occupy the non-government space. So saying, okay, maternal and child health seems to be an issue that the government's concerned about and citizens are concerned about. Who's doing something in your community? Who do you see doing good things? Are you that person? Is there good things going on? So we get to kind of see the community activists, the retired civil servants who are doing things in their communities, the religious groups that are doing things. And we gradually sort of identify who key players might be. In the first states where we set up, then our state teams played a very hands-on role in picking people and bringing them together. In our new states, we tend to work in a more kind of enabling environment way. So trying through these kind of media, putting it out, to have a sort of organic enabling environment approach where partnerships begin to form around these various issues. We then use a lot of organisational capacity self-assessment processes to help partnerships and organisations to kind of look at what their current capacities are and have a vision of who they have the potential to be. Our state teams then support these various partnerships and players through behind-the-scenes mentoring, capacity building, and relationship brokering processes. We encourage our partnerships to take what we call a snowballing approach. So they look at their existing capacities, they look at the change they want to bring about, and they try and set a short-term goal that's achievable. Then look at what they've achieved, look at what went wrong, what went right, what they can learn from it, and pick a kind of bigger goal. So they build their confidence and credibility as they go along. SAVI state staff take entire responsibility for monitoring and reporting to DFID. So our local partners have no planning requirements, no forecasting requirements, no reporting requirements, no monitoring requirements. So they're completely free to do what they want to do in their own way. If people want to drop out of the partnerships, they can. If they want to join, they can. They're completely fluid. They can go with momentum and opportunities. And we report our results retrospectively. So all of our output indicators are about attitude and behaviour change based on these self-assessments. Our chief outcome indicator is retrospective reporting of what the government is doing differently, where SAVI partners have played a critical role in that change. And we trace back, then we tell that story by going back through what they were doing differently in terms of their relationship building, in terms of their evidence, in terms of links with citizens, in terms of informal engagement, etc. In terms of our impact, we see it particularly in terms of attitude and behaviour change across the board, so that all of these various actors and players, including the government, working better together. So government inviting civil society groups, inviting media to be part of their policy making, planning, budgeting processes, valuing what these groups have got to say and acting on it. Citizens actively engaging in monitoring projects and getting the government to do things in their areas.